an empiricist, let's say, and speech.
Yeah.
And so the Mesopotamians had already figured out that attention and speech were the key elements of proper sovereignty.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Brilliant. And the Egyptians, right, they worshiped the eye. Same idea. And it was the eye in part that the Egyptians associated with the immortal soul, and they associated that with the proper locale of sovereignty.
Yeah.
Because they started to abstract out the idea of sovereignty from the sovereign. And so the sovereignty could be something that was now not embodied in any specific person, sort of like the Uncle Sam figure that you described.
Yes.
Wouldn't be the... I often thought with presidents, they'd have a much easier job if the symbolic weight was lifted from their shoulders. A fourth branch of government, right? Symbolic.
Which is what a constitutional monarchy exactly is, by accident of history, certainly not by design, but it just somehow, the bits of the sovereign that were inimical to human development, the tyranny, the autocracy, the whimsical caprice, all these were sort of chipped away because of the human failings of different sovereigns, until by 1688, what we call in British history the Glorious Revolution, when the Bill of Rights was written and so on, which was the same as the American Bill of Rights 100 years later, essentially, but and it became a constitutional monarchy, and that was slowly refined as well. And of course, I know many people find it absurd and outrageous, and they live in palaces and they've got all this money and it's unjust. And of course, all that is true, and I wouldn't defend it on any rational grounds, but I would on empirical grounds.
Okay.
and maybe that's a good difference between rationalism and empiricism.
So this, you were talking about the gods within. Okay, and you said, well, you believe that the gods are within. And,
yes.
And I understand the claim that you're making and the limits of that claim, but I want to explore that. Okay, so as humanity advances, we'll say advancement is the aggregation of larger societies, our more sophisticated view of the world, more technological power, that sort of thing, more ability to predict and control.
And indeed a longer lifetime. And the health.
Yes, and the things that come along with that, and more peace by the looks of things, and more food and
all the Steven Pinker things.
Yeah. Right. Exactly that. So the gods aggregate and unify. That happens across as cultures collide and integrate. The gods integrate and unify. It's the battle between the gods in heaven. That's the parallel development to the battle between tribes for dominance on earth. But it's an integrative process as well as a submission process.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are within.
Yes.
Now you have an integrated God within.
Yes.
That's what tortures you with your conscience.
Yes, that's your Jiminy Cricket. It's your, what philosophers call your deontic or deontological voice.
So then you ask yourself,
Yeah.
Then you ask yourself, and this is a dead serious question. So imagine that people are exploring the moral domain whose reality is blatantly obvious, but difficult to formalize, let's say. We're exploring the nature of the moral realm tentatively, and we develop more powerful and more integrated theories as we progress. You end up with a unified God, so it's a monotheism. There's a God within. Then the question is, well, what exactly is that God within? Does it correspond to something that's real? Or is it just a figure of the imagination? But then you say, well, if it's just a figure of the imagination, what exactly is the imagination? See, I think partly Christianity insists that this integrated God figure also had a real existence. That's how Christianity tries to solve this particular problem.
Yes.
And people like C.S. Lewis and Jung to some degree as well would say, well, once in history, someone acted out that unified God so completely that something happened. That's the proposition. Okay, well, that's the limit of the proposition. Yeah. And then the question is, well, how real is this moral striving? It's real enough so you torture yourself when you don't engage in it properly. It's real enough so you can't avoid its call. It's real enough so that you can make moral errors that are so severe that you can doubt the validity of your own existence. It's real enough for that. And
But
this is an honest question. It's like, I don't know.
But it's
I certainly see that how much good is done when people are good and how much evil is done when they're evil.
Yes. But it's very hard, I think, empirically, to be really boring and use the word again. It's quite, to build up a list and show that there is more morality on the side of those who followed a particular faith, a particular systematic religion, than those who didn't. It's. Well,
that's really the question.
You can certainly have morality without religion. That is
okay. Let's take that for a second. Move back to the political.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's the key issue.
Yes.
So let's say we're going to defend the values of the West to the degree that they're worth defending. Then we are making a claim that the inheritors of a particular tradition have something valid morally on their side, or we cannot defend that position. And we can't defend the position. I mean, look, I know this is bothering you, what's happening in the broader public landscape.
Yeah.
You got tangled up, for example, with J.K. Rowling, right?
Well,
with what's happening around her.
Yeah, she's a friend and will remain a friend. But I'm also sorry that people are upset. The two things are not incompatible. I don't have to break links with J.K. Rowling to say that I have huge sympathy and I endorse the efforts of trans people everywhere to live the lives that they feel they want to lead, and I hate how that they are often treated, and I recognize the courage it takes to
Yes, and you've put your money where your mouth is on that front over the course of your whole life.
I've tried to, yes.
Yeah, so it's not just a claim. You can look at your biography and see that. Yeah. But you're disturbed nonetheless at what's, let's say, there's something that's happening in our culture that's not sitting right with you. Okay, how do you defend the damn culture against it without making the claim that we do have something of, let's say, higher value that is the consequence of following a particular tradition?
Yes.
Because without that, you lose the argument instantly.
I think a lot of it is to do with the necessity that we all have of redefining it. We have to remember that morality is a question of manners. It is literally what morality means. That our parents and grandparents had a very, very different and very firm sense of what was immoral. If the word immoral was used in a newspaper or by a person, then that person's immoral. It would have a sexual meaning. It would mean that they lived with someone with whom they weren't married, or they lived with someone of the same sex, or that in some way they were philanderers or loose in their morals, meant entirely to do with the bedroom. These were the unforgivable behaviors of a generation that close to us. We can still hug them if we're allowed to in the garden.